standing outside of the borderline, and Tom came out and he said hello to everybody, but I was stood behind Nathan. So I'm stood behind Nathan, and Tom said hello to everybody in his usual kind of like shy, coy way. And me being me, I was like, oh, you're not going to say hello to me then? Because I was behind, he didn't see me behind Nathan. He was just like, oh God, hi. And that was it. That was like the meeting. Can I hear you scream? We're all living the dream. The funny thing was we were talking about it, and he was talking to me about it, and I didn't realise he was asking me if I wanted to go. So I was like, are you going to invite me, or are we just talking about it? You want to come? And so he hired a car and drove down to Reading, picked me up. Even at that point, I didn't realise we were on a date. Find a hand to hold, never let it go. I hope that you will be loved. Above and beyond him being an incredibly talented human being and an incredibly talented singer, songwriter, artist, whatever, that was great. It's a platform to remember him on, but as a person, he was an amazing dad and an incredible partner, friend, just generous to a fault. Oh, I don't know, I could go on forever about that.
So we're here with Heather Leoni. Thanks for joining us, Heather. Really appreciate it, love. Now, obviously, Heather reached out to us, which me and Ryan were very honoured, weren't we, to be asked, that you wanted to kind of use me and Ryan as a bit of a platform to obviously chat about Tom and reflect about things and just kind of look back on, hopefully have some good times and have some laughs and chat about our own relationships with him and stuff. So yeah, we're very honoured that you wanted to do it with us, and we hope you enjoy it as well as you can,
Yeah. Well, we're friends, aren't we? So it's easy.
Yeah.
Not safe.
So when was the first time you met Tom? Like, did you always kind of know him as personally, or did you know him kind of as a musician first?
No. I met Tom at a gig. Surprise, surprise. Because I knew Carl first.
Okay.
Right.
I went to see, it was me and Nathan James, obviously, and friend Helen, and there were a big group at Danny Dela Cruz.
Okay.
We all went to see, they were on tour with Scorpion Child and Jared. And we went to a show at the Borderline, which is unfortunately no longer exists. And we went there. It's quite a funny story. So we went and watched, and we obviously knew Jared. Anyway, Nathan knew Jared, and I knew Carl. So after the gig, everyone kind of was like chat, and having a laugh. And then we were going somewhere else, as per usual. London night out always got quite heavy with us Southerners. And we went to somewhere, but we were standing outside of the Borderline. And Tom came out and he said hello to everybody, but I was stood behind Nathan. And as you know, Nathan's quite a big guy and I'm 5'3". So I'm stood behind Nathan, and Tom said hello to everybody in his usual kind of like shy, coy way. And me being me, I was like, oh, you're not going to say hello to me then? Because I was behind, he didn't see me behind Nathan. He was just like, oh God, hi. And that was it. That was like the meeting. And I didn't really think about him again. I don't remember. And that was in October 2000, I want to say 16, can't remember, but he was with someone at the time, so he had a girlfriend, so there was no like anything there. And as far as I know now, he was like, who was that? And I was like, oh, who was that? And he was like, oh, that's Heather. Well, whatever. Then fast forward like into the summer of the year after, so you said that's October, and obviously we went into, which is bizarre now when I think about it, but I met him again they played with Tyler Bryant at the Camden Assembly Halls. The one that they got called up, like, out of the blue. They were in Europe, and they're like, do you want to come and do this show? And they had to bomb it back from Europe to get there. It was like the hottest day of the year. We were all in the Camden Assembly Halls, and it was awful. Like, the whole thing was horrendous. The showers, they were in there like 3 or 4 times that night, and we didn't even end up going in the gig. We sat downstairs, and we were with Jared and Tyler and a few other people. And then he came out again, and he didn't really talk to me. And I was like, why is he being this? I was like, he doesn't like me. He's being really weird. And they were going off to do Wildfire Festival. They were driving up to Scotland to do that. And then spoke to him briefly. And then a couple of weeks later, it was Ramblin' Man Festival. And Helen and I went, and they were there with Jared again. And Tom and I just kind of stood under this tree chatting for ages. That was it. We didn't stop talking from that point onwards. And I wasn't in a place to want to be with anyone, because I was married before, and it was all like, I was just like, nah, I'm good. Like, I'm happy just being on my own. But we just didn't stop speaking. And he reached out to me the next day, like, oh, it was really nice to see you, because we watched Rival Sons together. And he was kind of behind, and I kept looking back, and kind of where he is now, and kept looking back and be like, and then he'd text me the next day, and I was like, I think this guy kind of likes me. And then we just didn't stop speaking, and it was a kind of an on and off thing for ages. I'll be honest. I was like I said, I was not in a place where I wanted to be with anyone. Yeah. And then he took me to see the Foo Fighters on the 19th of September. But the funny thing was we were talking about it, and he was talking to me about it, and I didn't realize he was asking me if I wanted to go. So I was like, are you going to invite me, or are we just talking about it? You want to come? And so he hired a car and drove down to Reading, picked me up. Even at that point, I didn't realize we were on a date. Had no idea. I was in this zone of like, I don't want to be with anyone. This guy's really cool, but I'm not interested in that way. But I didn't realize that he assumed we were on a date. And I was like, oh, okay. And but who hires a car to take a girl, and she doesn't know that you're on a date? I know,
about to say, he's literally paid
to gone out of his way.
We went to Nando's, and then we ate some food. And it was at that point I was like, I think this is a date.
When you go for food, it changes the vibe, doesn't it? It's like, whoa, we're having food. What? Nando's? We're on a date.
Yeah, so we went to the O2 to see the Foo Fighters, and it was amazing. It was 3 hours, and I was like, oh. And I wore heels and I wore dungarees, which he never let me live down. He was like, because, it's safety first. And that was lovely. And I've got photographs from that day, and there was something happened, and some people were kind of pushing me away, and he kind of stood in the middle of it all, and I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, that's nice. And then we were kind of on and off for ages from that point, because like I say, I was still like, I don't really want to be with anyone. And then I went to see him play a gig at the Robin in October, so we had our first kiss. And then again, we weren't really together then. It was still on and off. Bless him, he didn't know where he stood. Oh God, it was the poor guy. I was really I was interested, but I didn't know what I felt at the time. And then December the 2nd or the 1st, they played at the Gifford, and I went up. I just got on a whim, got on the train and went up there, and was like, yeah, I think this is kind of it, isn't it? And then we were together from that point onwards, and then we broke up in January again, and it was just shit. It was awful. I felt crap without him, and he was like, he'd kill me for saying this, but he was a bit cagey with me. And it was at that point I was like, oh, I'm in love with this guy. Like, this isn't just a guy that I kind of have a bit of a thing for. This is like, oh my God, like I can't breathe without him. Yeah. And he had a gig. It was the Starting Gun album release party. You guys played.
Yeah, I was about to say, first time we saw the boys.
Yeah, and I had a gig with Vandenberg's Van Halen or something. I don't know what it was. I was playing some acoustic thingy in London, and I was like, I need to go. So I walked off stage, and I got in my car, and I drove from London to Birmingham, and they'd already finished by this point. And I just walked upstairs, and I remember it so clearly. I still have the shirt that he was wearing, and he was talking to somebody. And I just walked right up to him, and he put his hand out, and I held his hand, and that was it. We were together ever since.
It's amazing how that finished. Like literally, you finished that sentence, and that happened.
Yeah, that was it. We were together from that point onwards, and then we've never been apart until obviously the unfortunate happened. But yeah, it was a bit of a funny love story, but.
No, I think it's one of them, because I think love, like, this is going to sound really soppy. Don't look at me like that. But I think when you are in love with someone and it's real, I think it does catch you off guard, because I think and I think that's when you know that it's real, because you've been in previous relationships and maybe, you know, it's felt more natural, maybe because it doesn't have that sudden jolt that really catches you off guard, you know.
Yeah, no, you're right. It does, and I think that was what it was. I think it was like, what was so scary about it, for me personally, I can't speak for Tom, because I mean, I know how he felt, but at the same time, like, it was, I can't speak for him, you know, but I was terrified of him. Like, he scared the shit out of me, because I was like, you're the actual person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. I have to be kind of certain, because this is like from this point till the day that we you know, are no longer here. Unfortunately, we didn't know it would be so soon, but like, yeah, he scared the shit out of me. I was like, you are the one. And that's really scary. And especially because I already had Milo, obviously, my eldest. I was like, I'm got to make sure that this is right for him as well, you know? Like, but he was like a dad to Milo the minute he met him.
No, that's awesome. Terrifying. I think it's really nice, because obviously a lot of people, like, obviously we know you know really well, but I didn't know how you guys met, and I didn't know the path that led you to kind of when you've kind of properly fell in love with each other, which is really nice. How did you find the dynamic of being in a relationship with you both being musicians? Like, did it take time to adapt to that, or straight away did you both kind of vibe off that?
We were literally just talking about that, weren't we? Like, at times it was difficult, because obviously I kind of took a step back from music when we moved in together.
Yeah.
I was in a really weird place with music. I think we spoke about it, and the last time we spoke, I was just in such I'd kind of fallen out with it, really. It wasn't serving me in any way, shape or form, whereas like the Bad Flowers at the time were doing amazing. Starting Gun kind of like thrust them into some realm. I don't know what was going on, but it was going really well, and they had like festivals booked, and then it was hard. Like, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to sit here and go, it was great, we're both musicians and really supportive. It was difficult, you know, especially with a child involved. So you spend a lot of time on your own, and yeah, but it was great but there was that mutual understanding. This may be hard, but I know that you can't stop doing it, so keep going. And I was, you know, always supportive of what he was doing, always, you know, helped him with quite a fair amount of things on a business side. I was quite connected, you know, with the industry in a different way than he was, so it kind of helped in those ways. And being a songwriter myself, when they came to writing the Heart Won't Listen, that's when our relationship kind of morphed into this musical understanding. So it started, like you say, like, how did we deal with it? It was just the beginning, it was kind of chaotic. And then it was like, actually, we can kind of feed off of each other here. And then when I came around to writing Redemption with Rex, and Tom was like so supportive and would come into the studio with me, and he would sit and write with me, or he would, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And I think that in itself helps in a relationship, because the other person has a complete understanding of where your brain is at that time. And I'm sure you guys both have the same thing when you're writing, or when you're trying to write an album or prepare for a tour. That's all that's in your brain. That's all that's going on. And it can be quite isolating for your partner, because they don't understand, like, why can't you think about anything else? Like, there are 3,000 other things going on. But I think we've found a balance in understanding that, you know, because your brain is writing an album right now, every now and again, like, you're going, fuck, what about that? What about this? What about that? And yeah, we had arguments that were like, all I'm talking about is this bloody album. And he did it to me once, and I was like, I've been through 2, and now we're on 1, and I'm doing 1, and I've been through 2. And I remember having an argument with him one day, and he was like, oh, all you talk about is this bloody album. And I was just like, I don't know how it feels. So But then, so it would then subdue those arguments, because you'd be like, yeah, now I know how it feels. But then you go, right, what do you need to stop having to talk about it? And yeah, he was doing, I need this guitar part, and I need this lyric, and I need this. And he'd be like, right, this is what you do. So no, it was lovely. It was a beautiful dynamic, actually. Yeah, wicked.
When we spoke with Tom, he talked about that point where you were helping him write, and he described you as a badass, apparently, during that period.
The ultimate compliment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he obviously had very positive things to say.
Yeah, that's it. It was a bit weird for us, to be honest, Heather, because for me personally, I'd not watched the interview with Tom since he passed away, and me and Ryan were watching it before, and it was very weird and a bit emotional for me. I kind of felt like I could ever so slightly relate to probably a small percentage of how you're feeling, So yeah, it was very strange, but it was lovely to see that dynamic. I mean, it relates quite a lot to moving into your own place a little bit, something like that, doesn't it? I found when me and my partner Jade moved into our own place together, you have to find each other's ground and you have to find each other's space. And where imagine the two of you helping each other write something so precious, it's the same thing. You've got to find the space, you've got to find the ground, you've got to work out what things have each, what responsibilities you give to one another. But it's nice that you had it with him with the Heart Won't Listen, and then he had it with the Novahawks album, because it's like, right, this is your turn now. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. That's how we did it. It would be like, okay, you've had that time period for the Heart Won't Listen, now it's Redemption, and then this time would have been the new album.
Yeah.
Would have been Wolfjaw's new album. And so we just kind of knew that that's how we'd have to do it. Having children as well, we'd have to kind of go, right, this is going to be your cycle, your album cycle. This is going to be,
you have to plan it. Yeah,
you're releasing, you're touring, and then while you're on tour, I'm going to start writing our new album, and then it'll be, because that's the only way we could have organised it. There's no way we could have released anything. We would have killed each other if we'd have released something. We would have just been like, rah! But yeah, I remember going to the studio with him when he was writing, when he was doing the vocals and the lyrics for Beast, and he was just not in it. And I was there with him, and I was like, right, I'm going to start writing. And I'm going to say this because he never gave me credit for it, which I'm like, right, now you're not here, mate. So the first line of Beast, I wrote it. So I've still got it. And then he came out with the lyric, "The devil on my back is pulling the wings of the angel that tells me the truth." And I was just like, fuck, you when he wrote that line, I was like, oh my God, you are a genius. And from then on, I was like, you're on your own, man. You don't need me. I kind of how do I say it? Sometimes you just needed that little bit of why don't you try this? And then something genius would just come out of his brain. And I'd be like, he was just incredible with words. He just knew how to blend words together. And I don't know, I'm saying words now and I can't even say them. And I'm, you know what I mean? He was just genius with his lyrics. And yeah, that line for me is my favorite lyric he's ever written. Just because when he said it and I was in the studio with him and I was like, what? Because he went, I've got it. And then he just came out with it. And I think that the take that you hear on the album is him just coming out with it on the spot.
Oh, that's cool.
It was
nice bit of trivia there.
Yeah, there you go. Bit of Wolfjaw trivia. But he was really struggling with the lyrics for the album. And I sang on that album. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Ticking Time Bomb or something. I sing all the R's on that album.
It's cool because I love the idea that when you're in a relationship and you're doing things creatively together, it's moments like that you get to experience together, them little moments of creativity. And I think when you're on the other side of it and you're seeing someone that you really care about have that euphoria moment, I think it really fills you full of joy, because you're there with them, and I think that's the beauty of being able to have that relationship where you're both in a similar sort of field. It's amazing.
Because you know how difficult it is to get to that point, don't you? You know that to get that perfect lyric in the perfect timing that works with the song, and then to see it live as well, it's just it's
amazing to experience it together as well.
Yeah, it's like that pride But then there's something beyond the pride of going, I know how difficult it was to get to that point. To get there, it's like, yes. It was
understanding as well. You mentioned, obviously, with the No Thoughts, last time we spoke, we interviewed You Love Yourself, it was just after the release of the debut album, Redemption. Obviously, yourself, Rex, and the band played with Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons at the Birmingham show in honour of Tom. Obviously, it was relatively close to when Tom's obviously sadly passed away. I mean, it must have took amazing strength to go out for him and perform that show. I mean, how was that experience for you, Heather?
That's nice of you to recognise the strength. I appreciate that a lot. But honestly, I couldn't do it now. But I think at the time I was still in shock. Yeah. So I was running on autopilot. And it felt like the right thing to do. I know when Ian had put out that they needed a band, I was like, I don't want anyone else doing that. Like, it should be me that does it. It should be us that does it. It should be, I don't know. It was such a weird feeling of like, no one else should do that. I should do it. I should go out there and be like, I'm going to honour Tom. Like, there is no one else that should do that. And I think because, like you said, music was such a massive part of our relationship and our marriage, and it was just a huge part of our lives, that it felt like the right thing to do. And I'm not going to lie and say that it was lovely. It was hard. It was difficult, but I felt the closest I'd felt to him since he passed. When I was on stage, I felt like he was there, and because he was always there, even when he wasn't there, he was always there. He was always a text message away, or he'd ring me before I go on stage, and vice versa. We had a thing. I know you guys were at the funeral, right? I can't remember.
Harwell came. I couldn't come. That's right. But Harwell was there.
And when I said, have a good show, that's what I'd say to him every time he went to a show. If I was there or if I wasn't there, it was a text. It was have a good show, and it became a thing between us. And he was there. He was there, and it was difficult. It was emotional, and it felt cathartic. I think it's probably the right word. Like I wanted to scream the whole time between him passing and that point. I just wanted to scream, and I had no way of doing that, and it just came out on stage, and that was it. And I sang the song that I wrote for him that I'd spoken to you guys about before. Actually, I wrote with my mum about Tom, and which is really weird. Like I'm going to get into it at some point, and I've had a glass of wine, so I might even get further into it than I mean to. But, and they were playing Wolfjaw between the bands, and before Phil Campbell came on, they were playing. Sorry, my cat just. Yep. They were playing Wolfjaw before Phil Campbell came on, and they played Pieces of Me, and. It was the first time since he passed that I had an actual memory of him, because I don't know if you guys have been through something this close, like of losing somebody, but you lose your memory completely. Like I couldn't remember what he sounded like. I couldn't remember what he looked like. In my memory, I couldn't bring it back, and it's very normal in grief that you lose your memory. And I had my first memory of him sitting in the living room writing that song. And it just killed me off. I was like, I'm done. I was just awful. I was in such a state. I just walked away. So I just went into, but I have to say, and I think it's important to say, that having the right people around you at that point is like imperative. When Rianne was there, she's getting teary. She was there. My mum was there. Helen was there, who I've mentioned previously. She's one of my closest friends. And the guys, the band. And I went into the dressing room and just kind of fell apart, as one does. And Rex and Mikey, who's our drummer, was just like, that was it. They were just over me. And I don't think if I didn't have the right people on stage with us, then it wouldn't have happened the way that it did. It wouldn't have been right, and I wouldn't have done it. But the right people being there at that time made it easier. This is the right word, but... and they were friends with Tom too, so they knew they'd lost. The same with you guys, you've lost a friend, that's not, they'd lost their friend too, and so they wanted to honour him in any way that they could. So it was lovely, but not at the same time. The closest I felt to him since he passed, and maybe one day I'll do it again. Don't know.
Now, when we spoke about doing this interview, you wanted to raise awareness around everything and the reason why Tom sadly left us.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about that, you're welcome to.
I just want to preface this and say that I'm talking on behalf of myself and my children. I'm not talking on behalf of anyone else.
Yeah.
It's what we experienced that day. But I know there's been quite a few speculations about things, and I wanted to clear that up for Tom, for his dignity. And I don't want to get too much into what happened that night at all.
Yeah.
It's still quite upsetting, dealing with it professionally and going through all that. But sudden adult death, it's terrifying. It happens, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. There's no warnings. But I just wanted to clear up that it wasn't self-inflicted, as has been, rumoured. I've been told by numerous people that it was a heart attack. It wasn't a heart attack. I feel quite a bit stressed saying this, but I just know that for his dignity, that it wasn't anything that could have been prevented, and that he was full of life and he was raring to go. So I just wanted to clear up that it wasn't self-inflicted. So I really appreciate you giving me the platform to put that out there. And at first it felt like we should just ignore that, but I actually just felt like it needed to be addressed for my children to know that their dad would never. And if you are feeling like you're in a space where you want to, do that, then there is help out there, but that's not where Tom was, and that wasn't the situation at all. So that's what I wanted to clear up. So thank you for giving me the platform to do that.
No, we completely understand why.
No, completely honoured. And I think you've done the right thing, for Tom, and to just kind of just seal off that particular part of it. Yeah,
there was a lot of comments, and I just want to say as well, and this is really important to me, that those comments were damaging. To assume that is where the first assumption was that that's where he went, and there's no people, that does happen to people. I'm trying to be sensitive in it. I be honest, I've been there. I felt suicidal, and I'm not going to lie and say I haven't felt that since he passed. But there is help out there, so I'm not pulling away from that by any means, but that is not the way that he went. And it needed to be clear for my children that that's not what happened. And he went to bed, he was poorly, he had a stomach bug, and then he just didn't wake up in the morning, and that's how that went. And there was a lot that went on in between that, but I don't want to discuss that publicly.
That's completely fine.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. One of the things that kind of, when me and Ryan were talking about it beforehand, Heather, is that I remember when me and the boys in Rivers found out, and it was obviously such a massive shock and just kind of a disbelief. But immediately after that was an amazing response by the bands and the community and everyone around him, because I think Tom was one of them figures that he was always in the scene. I remember the first time I was chatting about it when we supported them at the asylum with Crows as well, and it's crazy how much has changed since then. I remember them pulling up in the van, and I remember Tom coming out, and obviously at that point he was a bit of a lion, wasn't he? Like he had his hair,
a long-haired Taffy Muppet, I used to call him. Yeah.
And I remember them all coming out of the van, and Dale coming out and wheeling out this absolute, beast of a bass cab that's bigger than him, and Carl coming out with his bloody ripped jeans,
Yeah.
And I was a bit in awe of Tom, I'll be honest with you, because obviously the Flowers were killing it at that point, and I remember the first time I chatted to him, and he was just so down, like you say, very down to earth, a little bit reserved, always kind of spoke, and he was just such a lovely character on the scene. And I think the outpouring of emotion and love from him was one of the biggest things that I felt afterwards. I think it was it's left a massive hole within the scene and the community. How was that? Obviously you spoke about, sadly there was some sort of difficult things for you to process in terms of people, sort of speculating around why he passed, but how was that in terms of the actual community response for yourself?
It was overwhelming, I think.
I can imagine.
And now I'm speaking in hindsight, because obviously at the time there is a lot to deal with when somebody passes away. Rules and, just the general fact that this person who people are outpouring about is not the same person that you've lost. Like, I don't know how to explain that.
No, I know what you mean. You have, when you're in a relationship, you have loads of...
You know what I mean? And my children have lost their dad, and that was my initial response was like, that Tom, the artist, I used to say, Tom Leighton from your Wolfjaw, and he'd be like, stop calling me that. Still wind him up. He loved it. Loved it, really. When they're like that little bit of ego, it's like, yeah. So, like, to be honest, the outpouring was beautiful, but I hadn't processed it because of the fact that I'd lost my husband and my children lost their dad. But now when I look back, occasionally I'll go back and read them, and it's just like beautiful that he had such an effect on people. Like, I know the effect that he had on me, and I know the effect he had on the children. But to think that a small part of that then went out, it's like, who has that? Do you know what I mean? Not many of us can really sit here and go, I've had that effect on that many people, that they are going to be that saddened by the loss of me in this world, my physical existence in this world. I just think that's amazing, and it's it makes me so proud that he had that. He was just such a big character in a world where we all are so minuscule when you really think about it. I don't know. It's just so overwhelming. And people a bit, and when the guys did the GoFundMe, and the people that donated and made our lives so much easier, I can't even begin to say how thankful I am for that. Like, I haven't said anything publicly because I don't know how to say it. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, thank you for money. Like, it doesn't bring him back, but it certainly took a load off of the worries that his loss kind of brought along. But yeah, massive thank you to everyone that did that. And I don't know how to answer that. It's overwhelming.
No, I appreciate it. I've really liked the fact that, like, obviously we spoke a bit how difficult social media is, and how it's the only platform for something like this, which is very difficult for you to process, because obviously without that you could come away and find your own time, whereas you're surrounded by it a little bit. But I've loved the way that I've picked up on, like, things that were posted even like ages ago. You'll pop up and say, oh, I love this, thanks for doing this, and that's really nice, because you've done that in your own time. Me and Ryan felt that as well, when you kind of popped up and said about, when we spoke to Carl and stuff. And I think the way that you've done it is been, it feels like the only way you could possibly do it for yourself, and you've got to do it on your own time. You're not there to serve anyone else,
This is it. And I felt like for quite a while, it did feel there was a bit of a pressure being in a semi-public eye, that you have a responsibility to kind of be out there. And like I see, obviously being his wife, I am the, how do you say it? I don't want to say the owner, but his name and everything that comes with it is now my responsibility. And so I have to kind of act dignified towards him and how he would have responded to it. And but at the same time, protect my own heart. And so there was quite a contrast in how I felt. Like, I felt like I was sharing it with so many people. And at the same time, I was like, I just want him for myself, And so how do you manage that? And the way I managed it was I just need to come away. And when I'm feeling like I miss him and I want to hear other people's accounts of him, I'll drop in and chat. But it's there. It's always there. And then that keeps him alive in some way, shape or form. And I think that's quite wonderful, to be honest.
That's it. It'll always live on within the impact he had on people's lives as well as your own. I like what you said about the fact that, like, obviously people remember him as sort of, just, you jokingly said Tom from Wolfjaw, but you knew him for so much more than that. And it made me think about me and obviously my partner Jade, and there's so many little things that we do that's very personal to us that nobody will ever know about, and that's the things that you relate, the daft stuff and mostly taking the piss, probably. That's mostly.
Because I found, like, Tom and I would take the piss out of each other profusely. Like, it kind of gelled. Like, what was the bones of our relationship was taking the piss out of each other, and outwardly no one got it. And it was like, oh my God, you guys are like awful to each other, and there's like this is going on, and we're like, what? Like, you should do the stuff that he says to me in private. Like, that was something I think when he passed, it was quite difficult, because I think there was an assumption because of the jokes and because of the ribbing each other, and and obviously things are taken in a way that they shouldn't be. But if he was here, he'd be like, yeah, that dickhead. Do you know, that's how we were. Like, that was just, but then the really private, and you've both got partners, those really private loving moments are not for anyone else to see, but the ribbing and the piss taking is, the world can see it. It's a joke. Like, we just, oh yeah, that's the wine talking now, isn't it? But, I think some people often took our banter, I hate that word, in the wrong way, but we were, yeah, it was.
It don't matter. I mean, because at the end of the day, that's yours. You know what I mean? It's that's it. It connects you two and no one else. And people can take it however they want, but you'll have that locked in between the two of you forever. And
he still does it now. I know, like, he still does it now. Like, I'm sure he's around me all the time, and I don't want to get too much into it because people's beliefs are different. But like, I believe he's with me all the time, and he's still. I mean, I can't find my bloody house keys for nothing. I have them, I put them down, and now I can't find them. And I know he's done something with them, and he makes...
He's taking the piss. He's taking the piss out of it.
Yeah, he is. There's been moments where I've been like, oh, now is not time.
No, it's lovely.
Probably here right now going, shut up.
Well, we spoke about, obviously, when we interviewed Tom, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you came in halfway through, and we kind of all took the piss and stuff, and that kind of was really nice and kind of tugged on us a little bit. You mentioned about how difficult the show with Phil Campbell obviously was. I mean, it's a difficult time, and it always will, because it's such a connection between the both of you. But do you kind of see anything for yourself in terms of music? Do you want to do anything, as part of that healing process, or anything more with yourself and Rex?
Well, I don't know. I've started writing again. I mean, I write. It's a good way of getting out how you feel. But I feel like if I released an album right now, it would be the most doomy, gloomy, fucking, like, awfully depressing album that you could possibly listen to. I don't think it would resonate in the way that, which is the point I was going to get to, was the way that Redemption was. And I listen to Redemption now, and I'm like freaked out by it a little bit, because this Dusty Heart about death, and Redemption about some other things that have been going on, and just some really weird. When I listen to the album back now, I remember I was in the pub with Ree, and I was like, this is freaking me out. Like, it's almost like a premonitions, and it's kind of, really weirded me out. So I don't know, it's such a massive part of who I am. Forget for 1 second, if you will, my relationship with Tom. Before Tom, I was a musician, and that's what bonded us, right? So if I lose that, I'm going to be losing another massive part of my life. So I think at some point it'll come back, and I think, but it has to come back, and it has to be right, and it has to be good, it has to be, because it's, I am ready to start writing with the guys again, and Rex and I talk about it all the time, and he's been an incredible support for me, as well as my mum and dad and Rianne and Helen, and it's the close friends that I have around me. But music is going to be my way out, I think, of this whatever grief. I don't know what the word is. This is not going to go very well, is it, this interview? Because I'm like, I've lost all the words.
No, you're amazing.
But honestly, me and Ryan were preparing for us both to probably start crying. Yeah, you obviously start crying, and honestly, I think you've done amazing. I think Tom would be so proud of. I don't know. I think he'd be so proud of how fun we've made it, and how positive it's been, and how it's been more about finding out the little things of your relationship, that make it individualist to the two of you. So yeah, don't worry too much.
All right.
If me and Ryan were drinking, it'd be a different story.
Yes. I think the Neighbourhawks is die to death. for want of better words. But I think when we come back, we're going in a completely different direction. And I know that from our conversations with Rex, and we're moving away from the new wave of classic rock scene. We're going to a more soul kind of orientated way, like being older now, life experiences, soul, blues, funk, like just kind of calls, like I've always teetered on the edge of new wave of classic rock, and I no disrespect to anyone, but I've never felt comfortable there. I love old 70s rock, and we've talked about this in previous interviews. Like, I love it, it's brilliant, but there's so much influence to get to that 70s rock that is far more intriguing to me right now. So, and I can't listen to it. I can't listen to Wolfjaw, I can't listen to you guys, I can't listen to any of it. I've been listening to mostly Tool. But I can't convince Rex to go down the prog route. He's like, no. And a lot of like soul music, it just speaks to me in some way at the moment. But I can't listen to Wolfjaw, can't listen to Bad Flowers, can't listen to any of it. Just, it's too hard.
Yeah, no, it's understandable.
Just hearing his voice is like, oh. But yeah, maybe one day. I do miss singing, and singing makes me feel better. So who knows?
The good thing is, Heather, is that because like we've spoken, and you said it there, how close you and Rex are, and how much he's been like such a rock. It's cool because it feels like whatever it'll be, it'll probably be you and Rex, and I don't think I get the vibe he wouldn't put any pressure, and he'll just draw you to it when the right time comes. And it's nice to know that you've got that person there that will be there for you when the time's right. Whether it's going to be soul or whatever, and he'll be tapped in as long as it's not prog.
He's like, yeah, as long as it's not. No idea. The guy I want to talk about him all the time. He was everything to me. Like, obviously, we've got 2 beautiful children, and they are the world and more. But he was like everything to me. Like he really was. And I had a great fear of losing him to death, and it's something that I have tried to understand. And I always kind of thought, I'm going to lose you at some point because you were too good for me, and I was always terrified of losing him, and I could never believe that he wanted to be with me. But like now, to actually lose him like that, I now have to learn how to love him in death, and that is a whole new journey, and it's almost beautiful in itself. Like learning how to love somebody who has passed it's hard. And we're having a laugh now, and I'm having a drink, I'm a little bit tipsy, but that yesterday I didn't get out of bed. That's grief. That's what I mean. And the day before I didn't get out of bed. I didn't get out of bed the day before. And I'll have a laugh with people, and then I'll feel shit about it because it's like I shouldn't be laughing because he's dead. But then I kind of hear his little voice in my head being like, don't be ridiculous. This is who you are, and you can't stop being who you are. And like you say with Jade, like they become a part of you. They become you're sewn into the fabric of each other. And when that goes, what do you do? Where does that fabric leave you? You have to learn how to re-sew something completely different. And but with their memory and with their legacy. And that man, the world has lost everything to me. I'm getting a bit teary now, but he is, the world doesn't look the same anymore. It doesn't look the same. It doesn't sound the same. And it's going to take a long time to figure that out, what resonates now.
Oh, bless you. He'd be very proud of you, though.
Sorry.
It's okay.
That was deep. Yeah.
We've gone through nearly every emotion at this point. I feel like we've covered nearly everything. So
that's grief. That's grief. I will say though, there's something to think about. They say there's the 5 stages of grief, right? There's anger, depression, denial, bargaining, and acceptance, right? That wasn't invented for grief. This is something I learned in my degree. It was invented for people who were dying. So anybody who was diagnosed with a terminal illness. It wasn't invented for grief. So for anyone that is going through grief, whether it be Tom's passing or a personal passing, because I know that there's some fans have taken it really hard. But it's not linear. Like I said, yesterday I was in bed. I didn't get out of bed all day and speak to anyone. They just was like, nah, I'm done. Today I've got up, cleaned the house, and I'm having a glass of wine with my friend, and probably going to continue to drink the glass of wine with my friend after this. And it's not linear, and it takes time. It's just about learning. And I was talking about it with Rianne earlier, like just learning how to live with it. It's not, you don't get over it. You don't move on. It's learning how that your life gets bigger around the situation. It just hasn't got there yet. I'm not there yet. So yeah, I don't know.
I think it's good advice. I think if you can take away that expectation that I think people place on people that they should overcome it. I think.
Oh my God! Like this widow thing. Like I obviously like learning now. I have a new name. Like people lose. God forbid, use a friend. Your name as his friend would never change, right? You're always Tom's friend. Tom was a friend, right? I was introduced to somebody the other day as Tom's widow. I was Tom's wife, Tom's partner. And then as soon as he passes, I now have a completely new identity that I am recognized as. Like, you're his widow. What the fuck is that? Yeah. Like, whoa. So that is like a huge thing to kind of...
And his wife.
Yeah, like I was his wife for 5 weeks. 5 weeks. And then I'm his widow. Like, what? So I don't take it. I don't take that identity, and I know we're all about who we identify as. I will forever identify as his wife. I don't want to be named as his widow ever. He's alive in me. He's alive in our children. So he's not. He's gone, but I'm his wife. I'll never be his widow. As weird as that is, but for me, I don't ever want to be named as Tom's widow.
No, I completely respect that. Yeah. And
it's this expectation of how you should behave as a widow, and how you should do this and you should do that, and my God, it's mad. Like I'm on one now, but I can't even begin to explain to you how complicated that is. I'm dealing with trauma of that night, and I'm dealing with the death of him, and then I'm dealing with grief, and I'm dealing with my children going through grief, and then like the expectations of society of how you should behave as a widow. Like I spent the first 3 or 4 weeks in the pub playing darts. Like I went out and played darts. I am admitting. Like I went out. We went to gigs. I went to see Eagles of Death Metal, who were brilliant. They dedicated a song to Tom, because the song we walked back down the aisle to was "I love you all the time." Do you know that?
No, but if you keep singing it, we'll know it by the end of it.
I'm so sorry. You're just like, let's just log on and watch Heather get increasingly more drunk.
No. You keep opening up more stories that are completely relevant and really lovely. So we don't mind.
Years, isn't it? But I went to see Eagles of Death Metal in December. We all went, and because Rex plays guitar for them when they were in Europe, right?
Yeah.
And when we walked up, I walked to him up the aisle to "Thank You" by Led Zeppelin. That was his choice. He wanted me to walk up the aisle to that. And then when we got married, we then walked back down the aisle to "I Love You All the Time" by Eagles of Death Metal, which is about a stalker, which I thought was really funny because of my like on and off relationship at the beginning. It was a bit of an in-joke, but it was brilliant. But they played in Birmingham, and they dedicated "I Love You All the Time." That's so weird. Look who just texted me.
Oh.
Yeah, I see. Rex knows.
There you go.
She's talking about me. They dedicated it to Tom, and that was great. So I went to a few gigs in that time between. I think after Christmas I kind of fell apart, but between his passing and Christmas, I was just like in this. Got to do this and I've got to do that, and I spent 4 weeks. I was out playing darts in the pub, throwing shit helps. We had the Goth Darts Club on a Wednesday.
Yeah, and we came second. Sorry,
we came
second. No, we came third.
Third in the quiz.
The Christmas quiz. Mary Gothman
came third in the Christmas quiz. Very good.
Yeah, it was a group of 2. Everyone else had groups of 10.
I think I have to explain it. I'm so sorry. This is going off the rails.
It's all right. I decided to we came third in the Christmas. Don't forget that. Don't forget that.
No, I forgot what I was saying now. What was I saying?
You was in like a portal, weren't you?
Right, so we live in this tiny little village, and I won't say where it is because we live in this tiny little village, and there's a pub, and we had our wedding lunch there, and they then did our party as well, and it was rad. It was so good. So, but they're putting a little plaque us Tom's seat, so where we sat.
Oh, that's lovely.
So we live in this quite really lovely tight community. Yeah. So we moved to this house that I'm sat in now, obviously, and so the community there have been pretty welcoming and wonderful. They just kind of leave me to it when I'm throwing shit, getting angry or being sad. They're just like, just let have a cry, come and have a cigarette, or they're those kind of people. And the neighbours are brilliant. And Rianne, who works at the pub, and great community. It's kind of like the music community.
Finally, I know. I always end up doing this with everybody. I've got to rein it back in, particularly with Aaron here. I have to rein it back in.
This is how we got the celebrity death match last time. It was
exactly the same. We're back here again.
This is how Tom and I's relationship was. So you can imagine it was one subject to be like, fucking hell. ADHD, man. Let's own it. Let's go.
Yes.
Smash it. Right.
Finally, how would you like Tom to be remembered?
Free reign. Honestly, as a phenomenal dad. I think, forget everything. He was a phenomenal father. He doted on those kids, and Bodhi was 8 months old when he passed, which is no age, but Bodhi was a daddy's boy. Like, as soon as Tom was home, it was like no one else existed. My dad is here, and that is it. And Milo was the same. He, I think above and beyond him being an incredibly talented human being and an incredibly talented singer, songwriter, artist, whatever, that was great. It's a platform to remember him on. But as a person, he was an amazing dad and an incredible partner, friend, just generous to a fault. I don't know. I could go on forever about that. He's just, just as an incredible dad and partner and loving human being that deserved more than this. And this should never have happened to him. And he had so much to give to you all, and he was ready to give you all the album that was going to blow your faces off. So we're going to do it for him. But above and beyond that, he was the best dad, the best partner, and my best friend.